Playbook for Performance, the official podcast of Shauna Corden, the Joan of Arc for corporate healing and performance. Join the quest to make work fun again by preparing leadership for engaging workplaces. And now, your host.
Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the Playbook for Performance podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Corden, and my mission is to make work fun again by building better leaders. This month, we're talking all about restoring your integrity, and today we're talking about the topic of shedding ego identities. So what does that mean? What's an ego identity? So in coaching, when we talk about ego, we're talking about that sort of demographic, the outside of you, the things that people can see and surmise about you based on your appearance, your age, your gender, your race, perhaps what you worship, your position, your affluence, etc. And sometimes we can get caught up in the rat race and we let our ego determine our joy versus the other way around. So we want to get into that a little bit today. So we want to start off with this idea and practice of what is your identity? How do you think of yourself? What are the labels that you put on yourself? What are the limits that you put on yourself based on those things? Wayne Dyer talked about ego as an acronym for edging God out. It was this idea that we do everything all by ourselves. There's no grace in it. There's no magic or mystery in it. And we're all here on our own. And everything that we carve out, everything we achieve is all due to our own hustle. Is that how you think of yourself? One of the biggest struggles that my clients who are retiring or have retired struggle with is separating themselves from their former job title. So when they met people in the past and they said, hey, what do you do? People immediately went to, what do you do for work? And so they claimed whatever their job title was. I'm a manager, I'm an architect, I'm an artist, etc. And that is just what they did for a living. It didn't mean I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I love to, woodwork, whatever it might be. And so what is it that you label yourself with? And have you stunted your growth because of these labels or limits that you've put on yourself because of that? So the way that we discover this in coaching is we kind of go through what are the norms for you. What is okay in your peer group? What's not okay in your peer group? So, for example, dress codes are quite common. I personally like dress codes. It makes everybody feel comfortable when they know what to expect in any given situation. But certainly there are things that are okay and not okay when it comes to dress codes. So, for example, some people take Casual Friday a little too casually, and it sort of suggests that work is a nuisance and not the purpose of their day. I personally love school uniforms. I think that they create an atmosphere that says we're here to learn and we're serious about it. We're not in competition of designer brands and trying to establish a pecking order based on what we're wearing at school. But there's other things. There's what is it that's acceptable from your peer group? And peer groups determine a lot of things, whether we like it or not. And depending on how large or small your peer group is, what is expected can change significantly. And so you have to think about those things as, is it a nice limit or is it something that is keeping me down, limiting my growth? Sometimes we outgrow these things and we're ready to move on to another group. And if we think about life as a series of teachers and that the teacher presents itself when the student is ready, it does mean that naturally we will outgrow some of these groups that we may have been a part of. So it could be social groups, it might be learning groups, it might be faith-based groups, it could be partners. So thinking about that, what are the norms that maybe you have outgrown, but you haven't admitted to yourself about? Okay. So what is it that you might be ready to shed? And you could define this by something you no longer need. So when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the pyramid is arranged in the stack of order that you can live the most time without, or the least time without, depending if you're working from the top or the bottom. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Maslow's hierarchy, he basically said we need to satisfy these needs at the bottom in order to reach the top. So the bottom, I explain it to my students this way. How long can you live without it? So air is the very first thing, because we can only live for about 3 minutes without air. The next is water. You can live for 3 days without water. The next is food. You can probably live for 3 weeks without food. The next is shelter. Now, of course, this depends on the climate. Are you in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean in a inner tube, or are you at the edge of the Arctic, or are you in Hawaii where you could live naked forever? So shelter is a little iffy one, but it goes in order: air, water, food, shelter. Then we're talking about relationships, belonging, etc. And at the very top is what we call self-actualization. And that's basically, I have achieved my life purpose, and now I have pivoted myself to help others achieve their life purpose. So and you may have some norms about each one of these needs. But I like to use an analogy about this. For those of you who don't know this, I am a big fan of clothes. That's part of my beauty need. That's somewhere between food and self-actualization. But sometimes people have a wardrobe that is chock full of things that they cannot wear. And it could be because of an ego identity. So one of the most common practices I see is that people have a wardrobe that no longer serves the life they live. So before COVID, I traveled a lot. I had a wardrobe full of boss suits that I loved. When I put them on, I felt great. I thought they fit great. I thought they looked great. And it made me feel like I was armed and ready for the day, whatever it might call for. And that has not been the case the last couple of years, right? Working from home quite a bit more. Traveled just a couple of times this year for workshops and things like that. Lots of virtual work. And so that poor closet full of suits is no longer being worn. Occasionally separates, that sort of thing. But are there some things in your life, sort of like my closet full of suits, that are no longer fitting you? And this could be a size issue. Maybe you have your size has changed figuratively, not literally. That maybe you have a big outlook on life, but before you had a little outlook on life. It could be that your friend group is much larger than it used to be because you are a new mom. And boy, I wish someone would have told me that's the biggest secret group in the world that you never knew existed. When I became a mom, all these people would reach out, and somehow I was safe then. I don't know what it was. But they would reach out to me and talk to me and things like that. But when I was just a single gal without a child attached to me, people didn't talk to me. So there are these little opaque and transparent groups that are out there that until you're part of it, you don't know about it. So what are the norms for you? If you were building a wardrobe, again, we're using that analogy. If you were building that wardrobe for your life, what would you want to fill it with? So let's talk about building that new wardrobe. Let's think about reality versus the ideal. So in my ideal life, I still wear these beautiful suits and lots of great shoes and things like that. and I'm traveling to great locations to do workshops and things like that, versus today I'm doing 2 workshops that are all virtual over Zoom. So what is the ideal versus reality? And what are the egos or those identities, those labels that will really serve you in this new life that you live? So if you were a character in this new life, imagine your life is a story, you're the hero. Are there things that you are holding on to that are not serving you? As you go on your journey and you think about the things that you want to accomplish, does the items that you have in your wardrobe today, are they serving you or are they holding you back? So field work for this week is really coming up with your new identity. So one of the things that I do with all my new clients is I do a branding exercise with them. We go through their goals, their vision, their mission, their needs, their strengths, their values, what's unique about them, and what are the 3 words that somebody would use to describe them. And if they could only use one word, what would that word be? And sometimes my clients come up with a word that they don't really like. They feel like it's the old version of them. But this is the great thing about the world that we live in today. It is this idea that you have been bestowed with these gifts and talents from your creator, whomever that is. And what is it that you are meant to do with that? What do you feel called to do with that? And how do you want to be known? Because that is something that you can pave a new path with. How is it that you want to be known? What is your new identity? And what are the attributes? So as you know from previous podcasts, I studied art history. Renaissance was probably my specialty. And it was very easy to tell who the saint was, even if I did not know the artist, because every saint had an attribute. So sometimes it was, excuse me, the instrument of their martyrdom. Sometimes it was the service that they delivered. So what are your attributes? What is it that you might die for? Is it saving the planet and reducing carbon emissions? Is it that you make the best grilled cheese sandwich, in your state? Is it that you're always the person that can be counted on? And do you enjoy that identity? Do you want to own that identity? What are those attributes? And if we were going to paint your saintly picture, what objects would we have in the painting with you? Is that behavioral natural to you, or is it something you have to work at? And if it's not quite fall out of the bed natural to you, then what are the activities that you could do or the routines that would build that muscle so it is second nature to you? And what are the things that are consistent with it? So there is an activity that Jack Canfield talks about in his book, The Success Principles, and it's called Act As If. And one of the anecdotes that he shares is that there is a woman whose deepest desire is to become an actress. And he says, great, how do actresses behave? And she comes up with a list of behaviors that she thinks are consistent with the actress persona. So, and I'm making this up because I don't recall these details, but it might be that she has a green smoothie for breakfast in the morning. She sees her Pilates instructor for a personal training session. She has her hair done, and she goes to a charity event. Okay, if that is the behavior, how do we build those behaviors for you? So with the brand that you want to own, what are the attributes? What is the natural routine and behavior of someone who owns that brand? And how are you consistent with it? Now remember, last week and this whole month, we are talking about restoring your integrity and making sure that you are whole. So in this new identity, we're not looking for you to build something that has a lot of fractures in it because you're not quite consistent. Start small. Start where you can be consistent with it 100% of the time. Because again, that will be the thing that builds your self-esteem. And why is self-esteem so important? Because it's the number one thing that gives you courage to take on new challenges that you may be facing, and try harder and harder things to get better and better at those things. So again, for your field work, craft that new identity, shed your old ego. Be sure to name both sides of it. I'd love to hear what you come up with. You can send me a note at podcast@shawnacorden.com. I'd love to feature your old identity, your new identity, the new behaviors you're going to come up with. It would be really great to inspire others who are on this quest as well. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Playbook for Performance. To learn more about Shauna Corden, her consulting programs and tools, please visit her website at shawnacorden.com and follow us on social media at Shauna Corden.